If you have experienced sexual trauma, there are multiple emotions that wrap themselves around the core sexual trauma. And if you don't properly feel and transmute these emotions, they're gonna get trapped in the body. If they get trapped in the body, then these emotions are going to continue attracting more situations that are going to trigger that specific emotion until they actually get addressed and worked through. My name is Silvana. I am a sexual healing coach and the founder of the Venusian Academy, a space for the exploration of Tantra and the divine feminine arts. So today we're going to explore what are the 4 core emotions that get triggered after we experience sexual trauma, what are the stories around these core emotions, and what you can do to begin liberating these emotions from your body. All right, so before we dive into the 4 core emotions, let's talk about the energy of confusion, because that is something that is very present as well whenever we experience sexual trauma, especially whenever it's unexpected or it comes from somebody that we trusted, or it's something that, like we didn't realize how we got ourselves in that situation. So confusion, it's a very deorienting energy because it is a reversal of energy. There is like a sense of like losing gravity, and it feels like a twist. And the reason why it feels like a twist is because you are encountering a distortion. So just of itself, if you're experiencing sexual trauma, you are encountering an energetic distortion from the other person. So clearing through, understanding that confusion is a very important core element of the healing process of sexual trauma is going to give us a grounding that it doesn't always have to make sense. If we try to heal this through the mind, there's going to be, a lot of icks and bugs, because if you're in a distortion, you're going to find a wall that is, it doesn't make any sense. So in order to heal from anything, what we need is to be able to feel it. To heal, you have to feel it. And we have to feel it with presence. We have to feel the things without judgment. Whenever we observe certain emotions without judgment and allow our bodies to feel it, we're releasing and liberating the emotional imprint on the body. So the primary 4 emotions are fear, shame, guilt, and anger. In that order, from like darkest to getting into more of an openness energetically. So let's address fear. What is the primary fear there? And the primary fear, we experience fear whenever we are not in our nature, or whenever we encounter something that is not in our nature. This is also an emotion that we experience whenever we are witnessing the unknown, or not God, not the divine. Every time we're talking about healing and addressing developmental wounds, or addressing sexual trauma, or addressing whatever traumatic experience you had, we have to speak to the innocence in all of us. The innocence in us is the part of ourselves that experiences the energetic impact of the trauma. And innocence is, first of all, is the core of humanity. Like that's the essence of our being. There's a lot of things that layer after that innocence, but at the core there is that innocent element. So we have to relate to ourselves whenever we're observing ourselves in the healing process as innocent. And what is innocence? Well, innocence is an expression of the divine as well. Innocence is it's like being God, being in that nature element of just being pure awareness, exploring its environment. So whenever we experience something that is not that is not God, is not source, is not light, is not what we know, there's going to be an element of fear. That's why this is like the lowest vibrational energy, is the deepest disconnection from the divine. To be in fear is to be in a lie and the illusion that I am disconnected from divinity. So a trauma creates a perception of that disconnection being present. And that's why fear is like one of the core emotions that we also have to address whenever we are healing from sexual trauma. Second emotion is shame. Shame comes after I did this. This is my fault. And we tend to step into shame whenever we don't understand something. There is a very negative emotion and it gets projected onto us. We absorb it, and because we don't have our boundaries properly developed in that specific part or of ourselves, we're going to absorb this energy. If it happens whenever you are an adult and you have agency over yourself, there is the shame for, I did this because of all the events that led me to this situation, or because I said yes, or because I allowed this, I accepted, whatever the story is. Shame is an internalization of the emotion, of the energy of the traumatic event into my body. It is a very self-destructive energy. It's an energy of not being. It's an energy that doesn't want to be seen, wants to disappear in itself. So fear, fear is this like almost like I don't want to, pulling away, hiding away. Shame is like a self-consumption energy of wanting to disappear as well. It is an emotion that is very present in all human beings, especially in women, especially whenever there is some form of sexual trauma, over-sexualization, or things related to those like primary energetic centers. Shame is going to be speaking very loudly. Then we step into guilt. And guilt is, I must have done something to create this. Guilt is present whenever there's the element of, how did I get here? And shame is, something's wrong with like my essence, my existence. Like I am wrong, my existence is wrong. And guilt is, what I did was wrong. So this is almost like the outer layer after shame, because there's also an element of like the action, the doer of the things being the responsible party for the event. And then we get into the externalized layer of this, which is anger. And anger speaks, and it's saying, I recognize that a boundary was violated. Whenever a boundary in space is violated, then our anger gets triggered. So with these 4 core emotions surrounding sexual trauma, we understand that like the primary thing there is going to be fear, and then the shame, and then guilt and anger. We can sometimes operate at any of those. Maybe we get very afraid of the world after an event like that, or our life runs on fear, like we are constantly running away from fear, so all of our decisions have that flavor. If shame is the predominant energy, then there's going to be always this sense of like, self-abandonment, self-sacrificial energy, because I am not even worthy of existing because of this thing. Now, this isn't something that we're thinking about. This is something that the body's feeling, and if the body's feeling it, it's sending this vibrational energy of, I have all this shame, and then more shame, like it's gonna keep creating more of that energy. So it's not something that we are consciously aware of. It's just something that we kind of stumble upon constantly in our life. Shameful events, or people that are also carrying a lot of shame within themselves. And with guilt, then there's this overly, sense of responsibility for everything. For everything that happens, it's on me, it's my fault. There is a burning of energy. Whenever we're running on anger, there's gonna be a lot of fire in everything we do. And anger is one of the most common ones, because it keeps things away. It's a protective mechanism, but it's a more empowering energy than fear, guilt, or shame. Anger is almost like it's the warrior protecting all of these other emotions. Guilt, shame, and at the core of it, fear. All of this, from a higher perspective, once you're able to move through these 4 emotions, there's going to be waves of sadness, compassion, compassion for yourself, for what you experience. But instead of, I'm looking at like the example I can give you, the metaphor is an onion, right? The innermost layer is going to be fear, then shame, guilt, and then anger. Sadness is going to be like me cutting the onion and then crying, and the natural release of going through that process of breaking through all of those emotions. So What we need to do here is alchemize these emotions. What is alchemy? Alchemy is turning lead into gold. It is the process of turning something that is negatively charged and turning it into something that is positively charged, something that is divine, something that has wisdom. We're only able to do this first at the energetic level, energetic, emotional, and then psychological level. And then that manifests in external reality as well. But we need to start with the emotional piece, because the emotional piece is the energetic piece in the body, and healing needs to happen in the body and in the present moment. So regardless of how the process to heal from sexual trauma is going to look like, whether it's something that gets intensively done in a short period of time, or whether it's something that takes a long time, and there's going to be almost like this spiral of energy returning to the same essence of that sexual trauma. What's important to understand here is that the healing process, it's an energetic release process. And in order for us to move the energy from the body, it gets done in the present moment. That requires presence. It requires awareness and observance without judgment. When we're able to find that and we feel our emotions and let them move themselves through the body without judgment, without suppression, without trying to change them, escape from them, or just avoid them, then the energy can be released. It has to happen somatically. You have to, the body has to let go of that energy. To let it go, it has to move. And oftentimes there's going to be, we think it's just shaking here or just crying. But a lot of the times the body needs to work out all of these emotions, almost like an acting out of the energy. So it doesn't, there's no right way of doing this. It's so unique to each person. And, whenever we learn how to feel the emotion and then feel it through the body, not trying to analyze it through the mind or finding stories connected to the emotion, but whenever we are able to tap into the emotion and move it through the body, that emotional alchemical process begins happening. And all of this stagnant energy that was in my body becomes energy of expansion that I can then turn into wisdom. But the energy needs to be liberated from the body. That's the importance of the emotional alchemical process and somatically releasing the energy from our physical vessel. So why is it that all of these, energies can be turned into, into power? Because emotion is energy. When it's trapped, it's trapped, creating stagnation. Whenever we go through the emotional alchemical process, it gets liberated. And whenever we have power, we have sovereignty over our sexuality and open a direct connection with the divine. Power is about embracing my animal nature, reclaiming my sexuality as my own, untouchable, pure, and divine, and a direct connection of this core sexual, raw animal energy to my divine spiritual nature. Whenever we establish that bridge between my sexuality and my spirituality, my divinity, we embrace the fullest spectrum of power. If you've experienced sexual trauma and you don't know where to start, how to go about the alchemical process, I have a free workshop that is going to help you move shame. And once you learn how to move one energy, you can guide yourself through the rest of energies. And if you want to dive deeper, my course Sexually Emancipated is also open for enrollment right now. And this is going to help you heal from sexual trauma. And it's going to go also through all of the core emotions, utilizing different tantric techniques to help move the energy from the body and help you find peace and embrace the power of your emotions and the embrace back of your own sexuality. So all of that information is going to be on the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, leave me a comment, share it with a woman in your life that might need this information, and I will see you guys next time.